What's going on, guys? Farzin Vasugan here with you on a Monday night. Thank you for joining me. It is the Chiefs Zone podcast. We are back, and we are here to discuss the Chiefs winning the AFC Championship, advancing to the Super Bowl. The dynasty, the run continues for Kansas City. And also joining me in just a moment will be KCMO Radio's Mark Van Sickle. Going to talk to him. He was at the game, got to enjoy it with his kid, and obviously had a hell of a time there considering the Chiefs won. So we'll talk about that, what the win means, and moving on for Kansas City. So going to talk to him in just a moment. If you guys haven't had a chance to check out our podcast from last night, please give it a listen. A long episode, but very well worth it. A lot of people called in. A big thanks to everyone who called in, commented, chatted, whether it was live during the show or if you commented afterwards. Definitely appreciate everyone that was a part of last night's live stream and podcast. That was fun. It's always fun when they're winning. It is always fun when they're winning. So I really do appreciate you guys and just what you've done for the podcast, the show, the social media. It is at an all-time high right now. I can't keep up with everything. It's just all kinds of insanity, and that's because of you guys. So thank you so much for that. Before we bring in Mark, I want to let you know that the Chiefs, not that you need a reminder, are going to the Super Bowl. And if you guys want to get your tickets, they are very expensive. You can get your Super Bowl tickets over at SeatGeek.com. That's where I go for all of my sports ticketing needs. And if you want to save $20 off those very expensive thousands and thousands of dollars of Super Bowl tickets, new customers can put in my promo code FARZIN and you will save $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com, pick your tickets, and at checkout, new customers can enter my promo code FARZIN for $20 off their first order here. All right. Without further ado, let's move on with the show. See a lot of you guys in the comments here. Appreciate you guys. Let's go ahead and bring in Mark Van Sickle here from KCMO Radio. Mark, thank you for taking the time to join me tonight. 24 hours ago, you had a hell of a time, didn't you?
Oh, man, it was so much fun out there at Arrowhead. I was able to really last minute, about 24 hours before the game kicked off, my boss sent me a text message and said, hey, one of our clients isn't able to go, sent me the tickets back. Are you able to use them? And I said, yes, I am able to use them. Send them my way, please. So I got tickets and a parking pass just like out of the blue. Was not expecting to go to the game. Was actually planning to watch it with one of my buddies. And I was like, hey, man, I'm sorry. I got to take my daughter. I've been to games with him, too, so I felt a little bit bad. But I was like, hey, first of all, she went to the 13-second game. That was her first Chiefs game ever. The 13-second Bills game about 3 years ago. Second game we went to, same thing. I got the tickets from work kind of last minute against the Bengals, AFC Championship game 2 years ago when they won, last-second field goal by Harrison Butker, go on and beat the Eagles that year in the Super Bowl. So I'm like, okay, I have to take her to the game 2-0 in huge games at Arrowhead. If I don't take her, we're going to lose. If I take her, we're going to win. And what happens? Yeah, we go to the game. We watch them beat the Bills 32-29.
Oh, hold on. Your oldest daughter has only been to 3 Chiefs games, and it was the 13-second game, the Bengals AFC Championship game, and this Sunday's game?
Yes. It's incredible.
Oh, my God.
Dude. I had to remind her, we're walking back to the car last night. I have to tell you this story quick. We're walking back to the car last night with mostly Chiefs fans. There were a few Bills fans around, but it was 95% Chiefs fans walking back with us. And people are reminiscing about this season, about previous seasons and all that. And one of the guys looks at me and goes, how old's your kid? And I'm like, 12. And he's like, man, she's got it good. I'm like, yeah, I just had to remind her that when she was 1 year old, that the Chiefs went to Indianapolis and were leading 38-7 against the Colts.
Oh, Jesus.
And end up losing to the Colts with what was that? Like a 31-point lead? Was it?
Or 28.
Or 28-point lead? Okay.
Still bad.
It was absolutely ridiculous. I was like, you watched that game with me. You don't remember that. We were watching it on TV, and that was so terrible. Like, I had such a bad feeling for, usually games don't leave me feeling bad but that one left me feeling bad for a couple of days.
Oh, I know.
I was like, oh my gosh. So you do have it good, but we did see some bad games when you were very tiny. But yeah, this is an incredible run. And I tell her every time, I mean, all 3 times that we've been to a game, I say, this is special. Don't take this for granted. We shouldn't even be at this game right now. And we're watching it. History being made.
I think there's like a rule out there where you don't tell parents how to be a parent, but I think we got to make an exception because Brad is giving you parenting advice. He says, take her to the Super Bowl now.
Yeah,
you gotta, dude. We will create a GoFundMe. We'll give you all the money. Then you buy the tickets.
You know, right before we went on this podcast, I'm not gonna lie, I got an email. It went to my junk mail, which I don't know why it went to my junk mail, but it said, chance to win Super Bowl tickets, 6 more days. So I'm going to enter to win. I don't know if I'm going to win it or not, but I'm going to try to win some Super Bowl tickets. There was a guy on my dad's Facebook page. He posted a picture of me and my daughter at the game, and he said, the good luck charms. And somebody said, you got to send them to the Super Bowl. Now, we don't have that kind of money. My parents, I mean, they're all right, but they don't have that kind of money. So,
I mean, just get like the KCMO fund or something. I mean, don't they send people to trips for like traveling purposes? I mean, it could be a work expense for crying out loud.
See, that's what I'm thinking. If the Chiefs make it, I'm already planning ahead to next year that if the Chiefs are, I assume they're going to be in the playoffs at least, but if they get to the Super Bowl, I'm already in my head thinking ahead. Next year, I got to submit it early. I got to submit maybe before the season starts in August to get some sort of press pass so that I can go to even just Arrowhead for like, you know, random press stuff. But I mean, if they make it to the Super Bowl at that point, we could get Radio Row access potentially. We're thinking ahead. We are definitely thinking ahead, but this season it was too late. We were
Dude,
too late.
I really would love to just be at Radio Row just once. I've heard it's a lot of fun. Some people don't like it. I know it's chaotic and crazy. I would love to be part of Radio Row just one time. I mean, I'm not a member of the media, so that probably won't ever happen. But I'd love to just see it and experience it because I've heard a lot of fun things about that whole thing. But yeah, that'd be pretty cool if you guys got that experience. That'd be a lot of fun for sure. Yeah, a lot of people reminiscing about that Colts game that we were talking about. This is not how I intended to start this discussion with you, but that's just kind of the way things
I had friends that drove to the game and watched it in person and had to drive back in a snowstorm. It was bad news for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But you know what? We've seen better days in the last 6 years with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, 5 Super Bowls in 6 years.
Yeah.
How incredible is that? That's never been done before.
Yeah, that is a first in NFL history for sure. I mean, let's talk about that. Things that have never been done before, because the big thing is a three-peat. Well, what have the Chiefs been doing lately? Because they are doing, I guess, the impossible. They've been winning without Tyreek Hill. That trade certainly, the responses to that did not age well. And then you look at Patrick Mahomes, his first year without Tyreek Hill, he won the regular season MVP and the Super Bowl MVP. I think the last person to do that was Kurt Warner in 99 or 2000, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. So the Chiefs doing something that has not been done in a long time. And then for this year, you just mentioned 5 Super Bowl appearances in 6 seasons. That's never been done before. Mahomes just went 4-0 all time in the postseason against Allen. We've never seen that head-to-head record before. And now they're trying to three-peat.
Another crazy thing that I read earlier today, Patrick Mahomes in the fourth quarter has, 26? He's 26-25 when being behind in the fourth quarter. So when the Chiefs are losing in the fourth quarter, Patrick Mahomes has a winning record for his whole career, not just playoffs, but his whole career now. Playoffs included, 26 wins, 25 losses. When losing in the fourth quarter. That is absolutely insane.
Here's another insane stat, and I'll repeat this because it is kind of crazy to follow here. When tied or trailing in the fourth quarter of a playoff game, Mahomes has led the Chiefs to 16 of 22 scoring drives. That is the highest in NFL history at 73%. Again, I'll repeat it. When tied or trailing in the fourth quarter, Mahomes leads the Chiefs to a game or not a game winning, a scoring drive 16 of 22 times. and that's at 73%. Brady is second at 53%.
It's just absolutely crazy. Like, we could do Mahomes stats the entire podcast if we wanted to.
Probably could.
I mean, he has.
We could write a book on Mahomes stats. That's how crazy it is.
It's so true. I mean, you look at what Mahomes has done since becoming the starter. His worst season has ended in an overtime in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's just like we're watching greatness, and every time I watch it, I know that, Mahomes had a down season or whatever, but I'm looking at him, all the injuries they had to deal with last year, all the dropped passes. You had, it's just crazy what they've gone through the last couple of seasons. They still go out there. The starters were 15-1 this year. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely crazy.
I mean, the Chiefs have beaten every team they've played this year. Mm-hmm. And that was the same thing in 2020. Obviously, did not end the way they wanted to, but every team that they had to face, they beat. Now, obviously, they're going to face a team that had not played yet this year, but if they win, we can, by the time the season's over for Kansas City, by the time the Super Bowl's over, we can sit here and say the Chiefs beat every opponent that they had to face this season. So it's one of those crazy things. Like, I think in my lifetime, and I think a lot of people can say the same thing. We've all just watched the Chiefs and wondered, okay, why are we not drafting this quarterback? Or why couldn't we have gotten that guy? I still remember even wanting Rex freaking Grossman, all because he made it to a Super Bowl.
It looked good for a little bit, but I was on the Russell Wilson bandwagon before he got – the Chiefs took, I believe it was Donald Stevenson, and then the very next pick, Russell Wilson got taken by the Seahawks. Literally.
Oh, God.
The Chiefs, I don't even know. I think Matt Castle was their quarterback. So they could have drafted a quarterback right then. They could have drafted Russell Wilson. They drafted Donald Stevenson because they're like, oh, yeah, he's going to protect Matt Castle and get us to the Super Bowl.
It's funny you mentioned that. I don't know why. Like, I just remember many years ago, back when Twitter was still fairly new, Donald Stevenson tweeted something. And I responded to him and I said, haha, I agree. And he blocked me for it. And I just kind of realized, I'm like, that's the only successful block of Donald Stevenson's career. And it was against me. But anyway, that's I think of when I hear Donald Stevenson's name. But no, you're right. I mean, listen, now we're kind of seeing it the other way. I know there's such a big deal about Brett Veach and how he doesn't draft wide receiver. Well, I think we got to slow down with that a little bit because no, McCole Hardman has not really panned out well, but he's certainly contributed. Definitely was the hero last year in the Super Bowl. Xavier Worthy. I mean, I know Keon Coleman had a better yard per catch average, but Coleman hardly has done shit this postseason. Worthy has been the team's top receiver for a couple of games now. Well, you want to add something?
Well, Worthy has become what Rice was at the end of last season.
Yeah.
Not quite as prolific with the 100-yard games and stuff, but he's scoring at about the same rate. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but next year when you got Worthy and Rice together, maybe Hollywood Brown comes back. I mean, this offense could be really good next year. But for talking about drafting receivers, I mean, yeah, you got Rashee Rice, Worthy this year. Now, I will say I wanted them to take George Pickens. He looks like a little bit of a hothead. They ended up taking they moved back in the second round and took Sky Moore. That one, I was on the George Pickens bandwagon. I thought he could have been a first-round pick. But, man – Sky Moore, a little bit. He did get the touchdown in the Super Bowl, though. He has one touchdown in his career, and it was a big one in the Super Bowl. So
he did have that punt return in that AFC Championship game too against the Bengals too. So I mean,
that was the game we were at.
I guess he's certainly made a big play or two when they needed it the most. But my whole point is, it's like, yes, the Chiefs have been there in the past where they did not draft very well and they passed on certain guys. Now it's kind of the other way around. Like, the Bengals drafted John Ross, and then one pick later was Patrick Mahomes. John Ross is a journeyman in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes is about to three-peat and maybe win his fourth Super Bowl. So, now it's kind of the other way around. And look, I've always said, enjoy this run here because you never know when these fan favorites are gonna go away. as a Vegas Golden Knights fan, because I have such a attachment to that city. I got hooked the very first season, and man, I think they're in year 7 now, or year 7 or 8. I can't count. Common Core
2020 messed us up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But a lot of the fan favorites that were part of, they call it the original Misfits, the guys who were there in the beginning of the Golden Knights in 2017, a lot of those guys are gone now. So these fan favorites, they tend to go away not pretty quickly. It's kind of like in the UFC. You can be at an all-time high, but it can come down pretty fast. That's the reality of sports. You have a lot of fun watching these guys, and then you forget, oh, this guy might be beyond halfway in his career. Look at Mahomes. Like, I don't know if you realize this, Mark. He's 29 years old. There's a strong possibility he's already at the halfway point of his career. I mean, listen, I don't know how old he's going to be when he retires. He's making a lot of money. He could walk away a little early and say, hey, I got 3 kids. I got a family. I just want to be healthy. I don't know. I'm speculating. That's a long ways away. But you just never know when these things are going to come to an end, and we're never going to see this dynasty again, at least in Kansas City. Enjoy it while it lasts. That's
what's been so impressive with the Chiefs. I mean, the NFL is set up so that you can't have a team three-peat, so that you can't even have a team get to the chance to three-peat. The Chiefs are the first team to win back-to-back Super Bowls and get to a third straight Super Bowl. That's the first time that's ever happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's crazy how they've been able to do it. I mean, you kind of look at the Chiefs. You've got a core of about 5 guys that they've been able to keep around for the whole thing. You know, it's like Mahomes, Kelsey, Chris Jones, Butker, and their Winchester. I don't think he's getting paid a lot, but I think those are like the 5 guys. Like, you can pay 4 to 5 guys a decent amount of money, and then you just kind of got to hope you can piece things together. So the Chiefs are doing it. I'm glad they re-signed Creed. They're going to have some questions coming up with Trey Smith and what are we going to do? Nick Bolton. So they have a good a young secondary. They're going to have to pay some of those guys in a couple of years. So it's like you said, it's going to be tricky. It's good things don't last forever. So got to win this year.
Yeah, that's my thing. Like, win this year. And I know this might come off a little bush league, and I know Andy Reid, Mahomes, whoever is on this team next year is not going to have that mentality. As a fan, dude, if the Chiefs can three-peat, I don't care what happens next year. Like, if the Chiefs win, great. If they lose, I'll be angry. I'll probably text you and everyone else who I text during games with my fireside chats. I'll be like, what the hell were we doing? And then I'll get over in like 5 seconds and be like, oh yeah, we three-peated. Like, who gives a shit?
Yeah, I got my Super Bowl, from 2022 right here. I got, my hat from last year. Yeah, you've got all the merch. So, I mean, it's like, yeah, we're going to reminisce, and we're going to love all these Super Bowls that we've won. And then, yeah, they're not going to win it every year, like you said. So when they do lose, that first one that they lost to the Bucs was tough because they'd only won one at that point. It's like, oh man, are they ever going to get back here? And they did.
Yeah.
But after that Bucs loss, it was like, oh man, that stinks.
Well, that's the thing I wanted to get into, because when the Chiefs went back to back last year, the whole thing was, it had not been done in 2 decades or 19 years, maybe just short of 2 decades. But the Chiefs, they have gone to the Super Bowl in back-to-back years twice. They did it, as you just alluded to, in 2020 and 2021, playing against the 49ers and the Bucs. And I'm referring to the calendar year, not the actual season. Mm-hmm. And then they did it again, beating the Eagles, and then a year later beating the 49ers in the rematch. Now they're going to their 3rd straight Super Bowl. The Patriots did go to 3 straight not too long ago. But they lost the second one. That was to Nick Foles and the Eagles. So, yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are doing things that you just don't see very often. And even the Patriots were successful, don't get me wrong. But we're kind of seeing the Chiefs do some things that no one else has done. So definitely enjoying the ride for sure. I do want to go back and talk about your experience at the game. The Chiefs had an 11-point lead at one point. And I thought, man, if the Chiefs can just play the smart, they can really put away Buffalo in the second half. It didn't happen that way. I think that touchdown right before halftime, there was a false start, but oh well. Only the bad calls that the Chiefs get in favor, only those matter. God forbid. You just knew Buffalo was not going away, and understandably so. They got there for a reason. What was the mood in the second half? Because I think there were some mixed emotions. People weren't sure what was going to happen.
Yeah, after Buffalo got that touchdown right before halftime, if the Chiefs had held them to even a field goal there, I think it would have been like, all right, the Chiefs held them to a field goal. They're getting the ball back first in the second half. The Chiefs' offense had only stopped themselves at that point with a fumble. Other than that, they've scored every drive. So everybody was feeling really good in our section. People I was talking to, giving high fives to, everything like that. But yeah, after they scored the touchdown, it was a little bit of like, all right, the Bills we're not going to blow out the Bills. Everybody was like, all right, it's going to be a game like we thought it was going to be. It's going to come down to the end, which it happened that way. That's exactly how it happened. But yeah, when the Chiefs had the offsides penalty and they decided to go for 2 and they didn't get it right before halftime, people are like, all right, that's a sign of possibly things to come in the second half. That means the Bills are going to have to go for another 2-point conversion at some point, which they did, and they did not get. So they started making themselves have to play catch up from that point when they could have just taken the free point and just played it out like they maybe should have. But yeah, I think that the Bills got greedy a couple times, especially on, I mean, whether you want to call it a, tush push, whatever they were trying to do, and they didn't get it.
Yeah, they struggled with that a lot.
Yeah, they barely got one of them. Josh Allen fumbled on one of them. They got back every fumble. I think they fumbled 4 times in the game and got all of them back.
Just to be clear, you are correct. It's 4 times. Statistically, it's 3 times. One of them was on the 2-point conversion, which those don't count on their stats. But yeah, you're right. It was, theoretically 4 times. Yeah.
So the Bills, I mean, I'm not saying they got lucky to be close in this game, but there was a couple times. I mean, Josh Allen on the first drive could have thrown 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was a lot of the Chiefs could have really taken off in this game. I know they scored 32 points, which I believe was the most they scored this season so far.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So they needed every one of those 32 points, and the heart attack Chiefs, that's what we call them all year, me and my buddies. So it's like, it's going to come down to the end, but as long as you got Harrison Butker as your kicker, I know he had a little bit of a dip with that injury this year, but in the playoffs, he's money. I trust Harrison Butker every time.
Yes.
Harrison Butker makes the game. It wasn't a walk-off field goal like we've seen in the Super Bowl and against the Bengals and everything like that, but it was a game-winning field goal in the fourth quarter again. So the Chiefs get it done when they need to. Like you mentioned earlier in the podcast, Patrick Mahomes leads them to where they need to go, whether it be to get a field goal or to score a touchdown. Of course, they wanted to score a touchdown there, but they ended up only needing 3. They get it done. They're going to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, I think the entire going into it from after halftime, people are feeling still all right. The Chiefs are getting the ball back. There was a couple right when they started out, they didn't score like they did in the first half. So it was a little bit of that uneasy feeling.
Yeah.
People not sure, the Bills take the lead before the fourth quarter. But then I had to talk one guy off the ledge that was right behind me. He's like, oh, we're not going to go to the Super Bowl. What are we going to do? I say, hey, calm down. We have Patrick Mahomes. Just look at his fourth quarter stats in the playoffs. We're going to be fine, buddy.
Have you ever met my friend Eddie Law? I've done a lot of podcasts with him. I can't remember if you guys have ever done a podcast at the same time with me.
I don't know if I have met him or not.
Okay. Well, I mean, he's done some. He does a lot of MMA stuff. He's a huge Arizona Cardinals fan, so he obviously doesn't have I'm sure he, like a lot of people, is tired. He's got Chiefs fatigue and whatnot. But I was texting him during the game. I'm like, dude, I'm so nervous. He goes, and he told me this last year in the Super Bowl, and he told me this in the AFC. He goes, dude, you need to calm down. You did this last year. You have Patrick Mahomes. Like, you're okay. Which, easier said than done. But I mean, he's right though. Like, think about a couple of years ago, the Minnesota Vikings, who I really like what the Minnesota Vikings did a couple of years ago. I think they had the NFL record 11-0 in 1-score games. The Chiefs obviously broke that record. Now, here's the difference. Minnesota, they lost their first playoff game by 1 score. And guess who Daniel Jones.
The
Daniel Jones
Giants
had the best game of his life, if you can believe that. Now, what's the difference between that Minnesota Vikings team and this Chiefs team? Well, it's pretty obvious. The Chiefs are in the middle of a dynasty. That Minnesota Vikings team, they were just trying to get something. They're trying to bring the first ever Super Bowl to Minnesota. That franchise has won a lot of games. I think they're like third, fourth, or fifth all time in total wins, and they haven't won a Super Bowl yet, which is crazy. But my whole point is like, there are some teams that are battle tested, but they don't know how to handle that. The Chiefs know. The Chiefs know. And no, it wasn't perfect. It was far from perfect. That's usually how these types of games go, especially when you're facing Josh Allen, who every year looks like he's the best he's ever been, but it comes crashing down against Kansas City almost every single time. So give it up to this Chiefs team. I mean, offensively, they came through when they needed to the most. Special teams with Butker and also Remigio, who deserves a little bit of love, setting up the Chiefs with great field position, which quickly turned into a touchdown drive. And then the defense. It was not a pretty game for the defense, but boy, they got some stops, and they forced Josh Allen to do some things he did not want to do when crunch time happened. That was fun to watch. I love watching this defense, man. George Karlaftis able to beat that right tackle, and Allen was just at the wrong spot at the wrong time. Got a great pass off to Dalton Kincaid. Just couldn't hold on to it. And I think you got to give Karlaftis credit on that pressure there.
Karlaftis is my dude. Before the Chiefs, I'm kind of a draft nerd. I don't know if you do mock drafts and stuff like that at all.
Not often.
But I just, from writing with Chiefs on SI, like I've just been getting into mock drafts and like early on, like in the process. And George, I locked in on George Karlaftis as a guy from Purdue who I liked his backstory. I saw a little bit of an ESPN feature on him, and he writes "prove him wrong" on his bedroom wall when he's in high school because people doubted him because he was a polo player and he started playing football later than everybody else. And so I just thought this guy is going to have a chip on his shoulder. He's going to come in. He's going to be a sack master. And maybe he's not the best guy at getting sacks, but you saw it last week against the Texans, 3 sacks in one game.
Yeah.
I think he led the team in sacks this year, didn't he?
He did, yes.
So, I mean, George Karlaftis has been a fantastic end of the first round defensive end pick. And he was there when they traded up to get McDuffie, by the way.
Yeah.
The same first round. I thought they were trading up to get Karlaftis. And then they passed on Karlaftis to get McDuffie, and then they still get Karlaftis.
Well, the crazy thing is he was on a podcast, and I apologize, I don't remember the name of the podcast, but he shared that story because his coach, the coaches always talk to each other. So his college coach was in contact with Andy Reid, and his college coach was like, you're going to Kansas City. And he saw that they traded up to get McDuffie. He was kind of bummed out about that. And so he thought he was not going to go there because he thought, logic would say, okay, you got a defensive player, now get an offensive player. No, they doubled up on defense. And that ended up being a very good move for Kansas City. So I'm glad they're here. And we were kind of talking about players whose contracts are expiring. Dude, this 2022 draft class, you're going to have some very difficult decisions to make because these guys are going to cost you a lot. That's why I'm saying enjoy it now because you don't know who's going to come back and who's going to leave. Reality is you just can't keep everyone.
Leo Chenal was in that class, I believe.
Yeah, Leo, Pacheco, Watson, everyone. They drafted 10 guys. 9 of them are still on the team. Darian Kennard's the only guy not on the team.
That's insane.
Yeah,
that's so crazy.
That is one of the best drafts we've
had.
Ozzie
Johnson was in there, right?
Ozzie Johnson, yeah. Sky Moore, yeah. All those guys. That crew has never not seen a Super Bowl, and if they win it in 13 days, they don't know anything other than a season ending in a Super Bowl win. 3 seasons.
And I'm not going to get too far ahead because obviously we got to win this one, but if they win this one and then they win it again next year, they'll be the only, obviously the only draft class to ever win 4 in a row. Obviously the only draft class to ever win 4, period, because nobody keeps players that long.
Yeah. Look, I know there's some concern about Andy Reid stepping away maybe sooner than expected. Travis Kelce, we know the end is near with him. He even alluded to that in his interview with Stephen A. But as long as you have Patrick Mahomes and Brett Veach, who I just, for the life of me, I don't understand the criticism for him, even from Chiefs fans. You'll be okay. The franchise will be okay. You're not going to win the Super Bowl every single season, but you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. I've been thinking about, I mean, again, not to look too far in the future, but what do you do when Andy Reid leaves? You know, I'm not a big keep Matt Nagy or, you know, I don't know. I just want to bring somebody new in at that point.
Yeah.
We've seen guys come back, but it's just, I don't know. Maybe like a guy like Cliff Kingsbury, who's already coached Patrick Mahomes before. He didn't have a great run in Arizona. Yeah, he didn't do great in Arizona his first run, but he did really good with Jaden Daniels this year, first year in with Washington. And I mean, I think he's a good coach. He just didn't have a great run in Arizona. And you look at guys like Bill Belichick. I mean, people don't even remember that he started his career with the Cleveland Browns. And he goes on to become one of the greatest coaches of all time with New England. So, I mean, Cliff Kingsbury with Patrick Mahomes, that's going to be an offense that's going to be humming. So, I don't know, just something to think about for the future. Not close.
By the way, I said this the other night. If the Chiefs do win 4 in a row, somehow in 2026, don't even have a season, just do a best of 7 series, just do the Chiefs and then have all 31 teams combine and put their best players on the field and just do a best of 7 series like that. There's no reason to even do a season if the Chiefs win 4 in a row.
Play it like what does Travis Kelce say? We'll play him anywhere. We'll play him on the parking lot. We'll do whatever we got to do.
Yeah. I love the officiating narrative that's out there. That's my favorite. I know we've kind of poked fun at that on this podcast tonight. Here's my thing. Officiating's been bad for a long time. A long time. It's not a Mahomes issue. It's not a Brady issue. It's been bad in a lot of NFL games for a long time. I guess it just gets exacerbated when it happens on prime time to the top tier teams like the Chiefs. Even the Lions were accused of, having games rigged in favor of them because I guess it's possible for other teams to get games rigged in their favor. Who knew that?
The Bills up until last night even were accused of it with Josh Allen flopping and stuff like that.
I did not know that. I'm not going to lie. But here's my point. First of all, if you're convinced something is rigged, why are you watching? That has to be a very exhausting life for a sports fan to force yourself to watch sporting events that is allegedly rigged, but you're going to force yourself to watch it anyway. And number 2, why are you not betting on these games? I'm going to ask these questions until someone gives me a valid answer. I don't care how annoying I'm going to get with that. I'm going to keep asking that. If I knew something was fully rigged, I'd be betting everything I have on those games.
Exactly. I would have put a lot more money on just the Chiefs money line and not done any extra stuff on the parlay. Just Chiefs exactly money line every time. I mean, I could have won a lot of money doing that this year if I would have, thought ahead, but would have won 17 out of 18 times. That's not too bad. But yeah, I mean, you got a guy like Dave Portnoy. I don't even like saying that guy's name, from Barstool. He bet $1 million that the Bills would win the Super Bowl. Why would you do something like that? I mean, not that it's rigged, but he sometimes will say that it's rigged for the Chiefs.
Look, I know he has what do people call it? Fuck you money, I guess. Like he has that kind of money. I get it. Cool. I just could not imagine having that much money and not knowing what to do with it. Oh, I'll just put $1 million on this. Like, I mean, I can only imagine, like, Chiefsaholic, he has to have seen that and been like, okay, I need to one-up Dave Portnoy. But maybe
somebody put a 1.4 or 1.5 million bet on the Chiefs to beat the Bills this last weekend.
I did see that. Yes, that is correct. And the payout was $1 million on top of the 1.3. Yeah.
And I said this, now it was a little bit of a joke, but I think it was Chiefsaholic mom. She's not in jail. She's still out there. She's still roaming. She's still roaming the streets.
By the way, did you see the documentary?
Yes. I feel bad for his mom. I do a little bit.
Yeah, that was just weird. I know a lot of people are maybe just now seeing it because it came out right during the holidays. So, some people don't have time to watch that kind of stuff during the holidays. But yeah, dude, that really was just a movie. I know we've already said for a long time it feels like a movie, but watching it, you're like, am I watching a documentary or am I watching like a suspense thriller movie? Like, what's going on here? But
I had no clue that somebody was following him around with the camera while he had the ankle bracelet on.
Dude,
like, I had no idea.
I mean, that's the part. I'm sure there were NDAs signed, but neither here nor there. They went inside the Walmart and they filmed his mom and brother. And was like, that's gutsy. Like, that is very gutsy. Listen, I know photographers and filmmakers, they do find a way to kind of sneak around that kind of stuff, but that was pushing. I remember I was filming a high school game. I was a senior in high school, and these were two high school. I was not a student at any of these schools, but it was Blue Valley versus Blue Valley Northwest. And there was this weird rule, and I'll get to my point in a moment. The first 6 games don't really matter. It's your conference games that matter. Mm-hmm. So Blue Valley Northwest lost like all the first 6 games, but they won their last like 2 or 3, and they had a better conference record than most of the schools in the district. So they got to advance to the playoffs with like a 2-6 record, something like that, or 3-6. And they actually had a really good playoff run. They got to the semis and they lost in heartbreaker fashion. The opposing wide receiver looked like he dropped it, but they called it a fumble and they recovered their own fumble in the end zone. And so I'm on the Blue Valley Northwest side because I thought they were going to win. I was going to get their reactions. Instead, I'm like, I got to film something. So this kid next to me who's on the ground crying, I'm like 3 feet away filming him. And there's a local TV station, Metro Sports, now Spectrum Sports. They contacted someone who knew me. They're like, hey, we know you're at the game. Can you please send us the footage? We heard something insane went down. So I gave him the tape and all that. They gave me credit for it. And then the director was like, dude, you got balls to film those guys crying right next to you. I'm like, I have to get something. But anyway,
I mean, that's a good shot.
Yeah.
Thinking ahead.
Where were we? We went from Chiefsaholic to this.
That's all right.
Yeah, we're talking about a dynasty and the Chiefs going to a Super Bowl. That's what we were talking about. The officiating. Like I just can't imagine just being that has to be like a weird and exhausting way to watch sports. It's rigged supposedly, but you're gonna watch anyway. Come on.
Yeah, I if I thought that something was rigged, I wouldn't watch it. I mean, I used to be a big wrestling fan, and then I kind of caught on to the game, so I became less of a wrestling fan. I've come back a little bit just because now it's entertainment. But when I found out that they kind of fixed the match, they know who's going to win before they go into it, I was like, oh man, this is a little disappointing.
Well, hold on, you're not the only one to bring this wrestling analogy into this, but the people involved in a wrestling match, they all know the outcome. They all agree to it beforehand. Mm-hmm. So when people are
the
like
Bret Hart match, the one Bret Hart match.
Oh, okay, the one Bret Hart match.
Yes, the Montreal screw job or whatever it was.
Okay, touche. Good call. But unless you're really serious about the NFL and WWE comparison, are you really telling me that your favorite players, whether it's the Bills, the Bengals, or Raiders, whoever, they agree to lose to the Chiefs? I mean, I don't think those players agree to want to lose to anybody.
No, they want to win the Super Bowl. Did you see Josh Allen's press conference last night? That is not fake emotion. That is not fake emotion. That is real.
Look, because I've been getting a lot of shit from Bills fans who, by the way, have completely disappeared. I'm actually going to call 911 and file like a mystery report because I don't know where they are. I'm kind of worried. But part of me is like, haha. But the other part of me is like, oh boy. Do you remember Nick Bosa last year after the Super Bowl? He goes, I don't remember what he said, but he's talking about how how it just got taken away from them. And he goes, but that's life. I'm like, bro, that is deep, the way he's saying it.
Like, and the Niners didn't make it back to the playoffs. They had a rough season.
Christian McCaffrey was on the cover of Madden, hardly played.
Yeah, that was rough.
Anyway, and here's the other thing too. Like, I get it, Chiefs fatigue, but before the dynasty got really rolling, if you will, The Tyreek Hill trade. And I know Travis Kelce at the parade that year was letting the media know about it, and a lot of the national media was like, "We never said anything." Yeah, you did actually. And props to the Chief Concern podcast. They actually put out a montage of all those people saying the things they said. Here's another crazy thing: 14 months ago, when Marquez Valdez-Scantling dropped the pass in that infamous Eagles game, Stephen A. Smith the next morning was like, "You should have paid Tyreek Hill." And then 14 months later, when Tyreek is just dejected, Stephen A is like, "Hey, this is what happens when you leave Patrick Mahomes." Wait a minute, 14 months ago, you say you had a completely different tone there. And by the way, because the Chiefs are going to another Super Bowl, the stuff that Stephen A. Smith was saying about Tyreek Hill 4 weeks ago, they re-uploaded that to ESPN's website. And I'm not going to go into specifics, but there are some local media in town. They will. So one media outlet, they recycled the NFLPA report card grade, and they were like, "Oh, look, Clark Hunt has an F-." And at first I was like, wait, again? But it turned out that no, that they just used an old article for whatever reason. I don't get it. They did the same thing with Kareem Hunt when he got brought back to the team. I'm sorry. That's horseshit. I do not like that. That's a huge reason why I'm out of the media.
And I know this is a sensitive subject, so I'm not going to take one side or the other here. I'm going to play it down the middle. But, in the next week, we're also going to have an article about the name Chiefs. That is going to come up.
No.
Every year before the Super Bowl, there's an article. There's one that comes out. Hey, do they need to rename the team? And, there's one article that's going to come out in the next week. So I'm just letting you guys know right now. Don't get upset about it. Just roll with it. It's going to happen.
Could you imagine if it was Commanders versus Chiefs?
Yes, I was hoping for
that. That would have definitely been. But anyway, I mean, listen, there are a lot of people who doubted the Chiefs over the years. The Tyreek Hill trade, even 10 months ago with the L'Jarius Sneed trade, people are like, "Hey." I mean, now it looks awesome because the Chiefs have a very, very high pick in the third round. I think the number 1 pick in the third round.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Chiefs, they're not afraid to trade Tyreek Hill and L'Jarius Sneed and let guys like Tyrann Mathieu walk. Those guys were huge fan favorites, but you got to do what you got to do. It's a tough business. And the Chiefs, despite letting a lot of guys walk, they have found a way to keep going. That's, I think, the most impressive part about this dynasty.
It makes us nervous as fans and as, local guys that cover the team. It makes us nervous when we see them trade Tyreek Hill or when they trade L'Jarius Sneed. But at the end of the day, then you sit back and you're like, all right, in Veach we trust. That's what I always end up falling back on. I'm like, you know what? We've seen it happen before, and they keep winning Super Bowls. So if they do something crazy, like, I'm not even going to say it because I don't want it to happen, but like if they trade one of our guys that we really like this year, this offseason, I might be mad for about a couple days, but
yeah,
I'm going to understand it. I'm going to trust. I hate when people say this, but trust the process and watch them try to win a 4th consecutive Super Bowl. Hopefully.
My brother's birthday is in mid-March, and my family and I, we usually go on vacation for, birthdays and whatnot. And I still remember where I was for the Tyreek Hill trade because it was the week of my brother's birthday on vacation. I was at the beach, just, enjoying life with sunglasses and a margarita, looking up into the water. And I'm like, oh, and I get this notification. The Chiefs might trade Tyreek Hill in 48 hours. And it ended up being like 48 seconds. Yeah, and I was just sitting on the beach. I was like, why? How? Like, but, now you're just like, sayonara, like, see you later, alligator. Like, we don't want you back now. And listen, I mean, Tyreek Hill got paid, but you saw the interview. Like, that dude did not look like he wanted to be there. And I don't care what his agent said on Pat McAfee's show. That kind of anger just doesn't happen like that. The Raiders tried to diffuse all these rumors about Devontae Adams being unhappy. Well, look what happened. I mean, he left one bad team to join another terrible team.
Yeah.
Anyway, my point is, it's like, I think these players just gotta, you want to go make money? Fine. Go make your money. I'm not going to fault anyone for that. But don't bitch and moan when things are not working the way you wanted it to work.
Yeah, I was thinking back when you're talking about where you were at for that Tyreek Hill trade. So I was working at KCMO at that time, and I work on the morning show and then the midday show. So from about 6 in the morning to noon is the two shows that I work on. And the Tyreek Hill rumors started at about like 7 a.m., like kind of toward the beginning of the show. And then by the time the midday show was about halfway over, they're like, Tyreek Hill is being traded to the Dolphins. It was like, whoa, this just happened so quickly. Now we have to have a reaction on the air, even though we're not a sports station necessarily.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Chiefs stuff if it happens like that. And so we were having to come up with takes on the fly. And I think my take was I don't like it initially, but I like what they're doing to try to keep the dynasty extending.
Well, it was weird because they signed Juju, and the thought was, hey, we're gonna have Juju and Tyreek, but they signed Juju because they knew they were trading Tyreek. So behind closed doors, they knew what was going to happen. It's just the public did not know until the 11th hour when all of that went down. And then 2 years later, again, I'm in Mexico when this happens. They trade L'Jarius, and I'm like, why does this always happen on my brother's birthday? Like, why?
It's that time of year, man. That time of year when the off season just starts.
Yeah, I guess. Mark, before I let you go, I know you got to get going because not to say you have a bedtime, but you do got to get up really early to do your job at the radio, which, by the way, props. I cannot get up early for the life of me. That's not my lifestyle. But moving forward, obviously that big Super Bowl, of course, everyone knows that running back, Mr. 2,000 yards there, Saquon Barkley. What are your thoughts going into that Super Bowl?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Saquon makes me nervous. We've seen the Chiefs beat the Eagles when they didn't have Saquon. But, I mean, this is still the Eagles. This is a team that if it's kind of like the Bills, honestly, if it's 4th and 2 or less, they're going for it, no matter where they're at on the field.
Yeah.
And that's something that you just got to get a couple stops, just like the Chiefs did against the Bills yesterday. You get a couple stops, I think you can win the game against the Eagles when they're going for it on a lot of these 4th downs. Doesn't matter where it's at on the field. You know, if you stop at midfield, that's great. You're closer to scoring. If you stop them from scoring a touchdown inside the 5-yard line, you prevent them from scoring. So it's going to help the team either way, no matter if you get a stop or not. But Saquon Barkley has me a little bit nervous. The Chiefs defense just has to, the next 13 days, 12 days, whatever they have to practice now, they just need to hammer away at tackling. They've been a really good tackling team. They missed some tackles against the Bills, which was a little bit disappointing. But if they can get back to those basics of being a good tackling team, that's what they need to do, because I know it's basics. It's football 101. You got to make the tackles. But if Saquon Barkley makes you miss one time, he could go to the end zone. We saw it against the Commanders. They scored 55 points on the Commanders. Yeah. Now, I don't think the Chiefs are doing that. I don't think they're letting that happen. But I think it's going to be another good game. I mean, the Chiefs beat them, on a last-second field goal by Butker in the previous Super Bowl when they played them. I will say this. The Chiefs, even though the Eagles have that experience, they have a lot of guys back still from that team that were in that Super Bowl against the Chiefs. They're dealing with some injuries along the offensive line right now. So we're not exactly sure who is going to be in. They've got some time to try to heal up. Obviously, Jason Kelsey not there anymore. But you look at what the Eagles do, it's pretty much the same thing that they've been doing the last few years. So the Chiefs know how to beat them. Got to get some 4th down stops. It's going to be tough. It's going to be the heart attack Chiefs like it always is. But I do think that they come out on top. You saw what the Chiefs did against the 49ers the first time. They were underdogs against the 49ers in that game. They win. When they played the 49ers the second time, I believe they were underdogs, right? Last year?
I don't recall. You're talking last year?
Last year.
Yeah. Last year the Chiefs were underdogs, yeah.
So they went through that as underdogs last year. They were a 1.5-point favorite last I checked against the Eagles.
Correct.
But at the same time, that's pretty much you're going to hear it all the next 2 weeks. You're going to hear the Chiefs are there because of the refs, just like, we roll our eyes at earlier in the podcast. You're going to hear that for the next 2 weeks. You're going to hear, oh, the Eagles, it's their time. The Chiefs are going to hear all this noise obviously they don't need any extra motivation to win a three-peat, but they're going to have what it takes to go in there and beat we saw them do it to the 49ers. They beat them in 2019, 2020. They beat the Eagles 2 years ago. They have the formula. They still have the same defensive freaking coordinator. They have Andy Reid. They have Patrick Mahomes. They have the core still together. And I just think that they have the team that can go out there and get it done, get the three-peat. I don't know about a score prediction right now. We're still pretty far out. But yeah. I think as far as the Chiefs go, as long as they don't have any injuries at practice, they're going to be the healthier team. So I think that as long as the Chiefs hold it down on defense, tackle a little bit better than they did against the Bills, get a couple fourth down stops like they did against the Bills, I think that the offense is going to do enough against the Eagles defense. Andy Reid's going to have a good game plan. We know Andy Reid's crazy record. I don't have it off the top of my head, but coming off of a bye, Andy Reid has an insane record coming off of a bye.
Yeah, it's really good.
I know that both of these teams are coming off of a bye, so it's not like one team's getting the advantage over the other. But the Chiefs I can't pick against the Chiefs with the run that they're on right now. There's no way I can pick against the Chiefs. So I think the Chiefs are going to win it. If I had to guess off the top of my head, I'd probably say it's another close 31-27, 34-31 type game. I think it's going to be low 30s, maybe high 20s. But I think
here's my
by
thing.
3 or 4.
Because you were talking about, if it's going to be a fourth and short, they'll go for it. I said earlier in the week, last week, I said Sean McDermott will be very aggressive in this game. 6 fourth down attempts, and I know a couple of them were late in the game where they were down and they had to do it, or otherwise they lose. But you knew they were going to be aggressive. A couple of 2-point conversion tries you brought up earlier. Here's my thing. If the Chiefs found a way, because I wrote off the Chiefs being able to even stop Josh Allen and those quarterback sneaks. I didn't even give that any kind of thought. They gave the Bills a very difficult time on those tush push QB sneaks, whatever you want to call it. And I think part of it is the Bills they didn't line up right. Like they're putting a guy smaller than Allen behind him for the push. That's not going to work. I'm not a coach or anything, but I think, you can use your brain and just use some basic thinking skills and figure that out. But here's the other thing too. It's like the Chiefs offense, they clicked a little better than usual. Xavier Worthy was your top receiver. Juju Smith-Schuster had 2 big catches. Hollywood Brown got involved pretty well, and they took advantage of the banged up secondary there. Travis Kelce hardly did anything in this game. Like that's the crazy
really
part.
Well.
Kelce, he blocked great. Only had 2 catches. Hopkins only had 1. The Chiefs will utilize them, though. They'll figure out a way to do it. So I'm pretty confident that they'll win. I'm optimistic with the personnel they're coming in, just the mindset and the creativity. That's the most important thing right there. So I feel pretty good about their chances of winning.
And one thing as you were saying, talking right there, just about, what they did with their formations and stuff like that. They did like the wishbone a couple times, the T formation. Then Mahomes had some designed runs, which we have not seen very much out of Mahomes. And the last time they played the Eagles in the Super Bowl, I kind of forgot about this just because he's a crazy elastic human being. He had torn up his ankle in that playoff run. He had a bum ankle going into that Super Bowl. He re-aggravated it right before halftime. And people were like, the Chiefs are down by 10. They're done. Patrick Mahomes has a bad ankle. They are done. He has that crazy, 30, 35-yard run to get him into field goal range in the final 2 minutes of the game.
Please hold on to the ball and please don't hurt your ankle.
Yeah, he just kind of flopped down.
Don't forget, also on that drive, Pacheco took a huge shot from one of the Eagles defenders too. And I think that led to him getting surgery on a shoulder and a wrist, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
So, I mean, they're playing the same Eagles team. I mean, there's a few different pieces here and there for both teams, but it's similar teams. Chiefs won it last time. I think Mahomes is going to have fresher legs this time. He's not coming in with an ankle injury, which is huge for the Chiefs because, as you saw against the Bills, if you're going to double team Travis Kelce, if you're going to be following these receivers all over, Mahomes is going to have a wide open lane on the outside that he can just take off for a first down whenever he wants it, and he's not afraid to get it. And the Chiefs just they haven't even it's crazy to say. It's crazy to say with a team that's back in the Super Bowl, but their offense has truly not even clicked the way that they are capable of, and they're in the Super Bowl.
Listen, I know this has been brought up by a lot of people, by fans and by the media. There's something to the fact that the Chiefs are holding back on some things. I mean, they really are. Maybe not by design, but that's just the way things have gone. Like, we haven't really seen Hopkins have a big game yet outside of the Bucs game where he had 2 scores. So I mean, could they play? They just scored 32 points for the first time all year. Yep. Could they be holding on to some plays? I mean, are we going to see another variation of the corn dog? Like, I'm excited to see what they're going to do. I'm excited. I really am.
There was that one. I don't know if it was flea flicker, but maybe it was a reverse flea flicker where Mahomes wanted to go deep to, I believe it was Hollywood Brown, and it wasn't open. They were double covering him over the top, and then they threw it short to Pacheco. He tripped over himself. It could have been a first down on a short. It could have been a first down on a short pass to Pacheco, but he just kind of slipped up. But I mean, they're going to be doing some kind of plays like that in the Super Bowl, where they're going to be looking for a deep shot that they haven't had throughout the season. And if Worthy's open or Brown's open, they're going to get a big time long touchdown in the Super Bowl to one of those guys. If it's not there, Mahomes showed you he can just check it down. He can run it himself. But if they have an open Worthy deep, if they have an open Brown deep, they are going to hit one of those in the Super Bowl and hit a big touchdown. I just have a good feeling.
One last thing, too, before we go. Another reason to be excited. This guy's the referee. So I don't know who made this, but this has been this has been a meme for a very long time. And the NFL was like, who's the referee going to be? Oh, yeah, let's pick this guy who's been part of this viral meme with Mahomes. Sorry, what's that?
Was his name Blake?
No, that was the referee. That was a referee yesterday. This is Ron Torbert.
Oh, okay, Ron Torbert. Okay,
yeah. So
I'm starting to know these refs' names because of your Facebook page, honestly. Because I go to your Facebook page to see who the ref's going to be because I know that you post it. So I appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad to hear someone checks that. Thank you.
I'm like, I know that Farzan's going to have it, so I got to go to his page for the ref update because I love that you post that because I've become knowledgeable of the refs' names, honestly. I wouldn't know who Cleet Blakeman is if it wasn't for you.
Torbert was the guy who gave that, alleged 5th down in the AFC Championship game, even though they explained what happened and Bengals fans don't want to look at facts because, feelings over facts, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be a fun game. Mark, let us know how can people check out what you do at KCMO? How can people listen?
Yeah, you can just listen in the morning show, 6 to 10 a.m. I chime in on there every now and then, especially when they're doing Chiefs talk, Royals talk, local stadium talk. We get into that. I know that's kind of a touchy subject to people, but we get into that sometimes. So I'll chime in on topics like that. The midday show is now just 10 to 11. It used to be 10 to noon, but 10 to 11 with Kevin Keatsman, who's a former sports guy. He's back on the radio here in Kansas City. Not sure if everybody knew that or not, but yeah, I'm the producer for both of those shows. So yeah, we keep things rolling over there. 95.7 FM if you're in Kansas City, KCMOtalkradio.com if you're online. We got a KCMO Talk Radio app. If you say, hey, Alexa, listen to KCMO Talk Radio, it'll pop up on your Alexa. So it's really easy to listen nowadays. And on the weekends, I only have, I guess, maybe 1-2 shows left. I do a show called Sunday Sharps where I go game by game during the NFL season. Now there's only 2 teams left, but I've been going through every game, picking against the spread in every game all season long. I have a win-loss record. I don't have it pulled up right now, but I have a winning record this year. So I will say that it's been a fun season doing all of the NFL games. So Sunday Sharps, if you want to look that up on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I have them posted up there usually by Friday every week. And then the show airs at 8 a.m. on Sundays on KCMO Talk Radio.
Okay, good stuff. KCMO Radio, check it out. 710 on AM and
on AM, 95.7 on FM.
I got my AMs and FMs mixed up. So thank
Oh,
you.
that's
Thank
all
you.
right. We're on both stations, so it's kind of unique.
There you go. There you go.
And then
Mark,
at Mark the Overseer on Twitter and Facebook too.
yes, give him a follow on there. Mark the Overseer. Hey, Mark, it's always fun talking to you. I appreciate you making time to come on here and sharing your experience last night and all. I know you got to get going, so I'll let you go. Appreciate your time again. We'll do this later.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
All right, appreciate it, Mark. You take care. Bye. All right, that's Mark Van Sickle from KCMO Radio. Good to talk to him and get his experience from the game last night and just get into all kinds of stuff here. I just think, as we, gradually turn our attention over to the Super Bowl, obviously this is kind of weird because, Monday and Tuesday, you usually react to whatever happened on Sunday or Monday, which, in this case, it's Sunday. Then Wednesday is usually the turning point. I mean, there was only one game or two games rather. So there's not a whole lot for people to talk about this week. Obviously, people are a lot of eyes on these games, but I guess, it's never too early to turn the page and look ahead at the Super Bowl, even though it's more than a week away. I've always had mixed thoughts about that. The Super Bowl being more than a week away. I always liked it. But then there are times I'm like, is it necessary? See, here's my thing. The Pro Bowl used to be after the Super Bowl. So I'm glad they change it and put it in that weird, bye week where nothing's happening in the NFL. Because the season should end with the Super Bowl, not the Pro Bowl. It's a little weird when it's the other way around. I don't know why. It was always a weird feel in years past. So back when, I guess some people cared about the Pro Bowl back then. Today, it's like, I don't even know what it is. I watched it last year for like 10 minutes and I don't know what I was getting myself into. I'm like, this is weird. This is really, really weird. But so Tina says, I wish the Super Bowl was on a Saturday. Well, this is the thing. A lot of people, because I guess, the saying Super Bowl Sunday, that's just a thing. Super Bowl Saturday, I guess, doesn't sound as cool, but I get your logic, Tina, because, a lot of people want to stay up and react and whatnot, especially nowadays with a lot of people on their phones. They want to listen to talk radio for any radio stations that are on. They want to listen to any podcast like this one that might be reacting to the Super Bowl, live stream, social media chatter. All of that is happening, and people kind of want to be a part of it as it's going on. I know for certain events, whether it's sports, politics, a TV show that a lot of people might be watching at once, there's always that social media reaction that's happening live, and people want to be a part of it. So, I know there's this talk about moving the Super Bowl back a bit to President's Day, or I'm sorry, what's the holiday in February? I'm trying to look it up right now. Oh, I'm in January. President's Day. Yeah, so I guess the idea is to find a way to move the Super Bowl back to where it falls on the same weekend as President's Day. That way people can be off that Monday after. Because everyone wants to watch the sports shows. I know a lot of people don't get a chance to watch all of the reactions to it. Yeah, I mean, this is not a surprise, Brad. That's been a rumor for a while. And look, 17 games. I mean, that's an odd number to begin with. So I think a lot of people knew already that this was going to happen. It's just a matter of when, not if. So that kind of thing is going to happen soon, and in a way to where the Super Bowl can happen on the same week as President's Day. That way people can be off after. I know not every single person can be off. I mean, there are some people who, people who work in a hospital, people who work at a gas station, or maybe some grocery stores. Like you still got to do your thing. Some jobs out there. But I guess the majority of the people out there would be off that day. So I don't know. I think the city would make a lot more money if it was on a Saturday. I suppose. I mean, I guess if it was on a Saturday, maybe there would be a lot more people out and about, whether their team, their city is playing the Super Bowl or not. I don't know. I'm not really sure. Hey, a couple other things to talk about here. I didn't get a chance to talk to Mark about this. I'll maybe talk to him about it off air. Um, because on his show they do have the mayor on once a week, every Thursday. And I'm really curious if the topic of the parade comes up. And listen, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, wait for the game to end. You don't want to jinx it." Folks, you have to plan for the Super Bowl parade very well very well in advance. You can't just wait for the game to end and then plan for it. The planning behind it, it takes a long time. Um and there are rumors of the city possibly doing away with the rally, where the players talk, the cheerleaders dance, Mitch Holtis gives a little nice pep rally, the mayor, the governor, they all chime in and say a few words. They might do away with all of that. And I know some of you guys don't like it because one bad person ruined it for the rest. Here's my thing. Whenever we have a violent situation like this that happens in our country, we get the details as to what happened. We don't have a lot of details for what happened in this incident here. Still, I mean, we know what happened to Lisa Lopez Galvan. Very tragic. And we know that there were about 11 or a dozen kids who were shot. How is it that it was just one adult and then the rest of the people were kids? Like something, it just doesn't add up. I'm not saying, people are lying about what happened, but there's no transparency about how things got escalated the way it did. We still don't have that. Because there's some rumors, oh, it was inside the parking garage. No, it wasn't. No, because when you see the footage of people near Union Station just running away when they hear the shots, people are running in all different directions. So people might be running into the gunfire not knowing that's the case. So there's still a lot of questions about that whole thing as to what happened, why it happened. I don't know. It just didn't make sense. Didn't make sense. Listen, we all want safety. If they're doing this, if they're canceling the rally for safety purposes, listen, man, I'm never gonna fight against that. We do not want something like that to ever happen again. And listen, it doesn't matter whether you're celebrating a Super Bowl or you're just going to a grocery store. Nobody ever wants to be in the middle of something like that ever. No one should ever have to. Unfortunately, these things happen. And I think we have leaders, elected officials, who need to figure that kind of stuff out. So I don't know. It's just, there have been some reports about how this parade might be different from other parades. Again, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but the city has to plan for these things in advance. People don't realize that. So I don't know. Have the rally at Arrowhead, man. There are going to be a lot of people who miss out, Blake, if that's how they go about it. Because isn't there a million people, give or take, at the rally? I mean, how many people can you fit at Arrowhead? 70,000. Yeah. I mean, there are going to be a lot of people who would not be able to get in, and I don't think people would want to, I don't think that's going to be accepted real well. I just don't think that's going to be the case. So, I mean, I hope we get some sort of transparency with that, because we haven't, and that's just a little weird. Yeah, Aaron. I mean, listen, I've had my thoughts on that. I'll save that topic for another time. Sometimes I just wonder, like, certain decisions that are being made, like, is that really priority number one at the moment? I mean, I get we can multitask and do multiple things at once, but sometimes it feels like we prioritize certain things over the other when that's not the case. Yeah, it is Saquon Barkley's birthday on the Super Bowl. That's a great way to have your birthday, playing the biggest game of the year. That's certainly a way to enjoy it. Hopefully the Chiefs can find a way to spoil it. Hopefully they find a way to spoil it. All right, guys. Those are really all the thoughts I have here on tonight's episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. So I will leave you all with that. We will have a podcast on Wednesday, so do not miss that. Again, probably not going to be touching on the Super Bowl too much. That's probably when we will make our transition to focusing on the Eagles, and we'll probably do like a light preview. Again, not going to be in depth or anything like that. That'll be more next week on the podcast. Next week, we'll still have a Monday podcast. We'll still have a Wednesday podcast. Red Friday live chat will still be the same. We'll have one this Friday. We'll have another one next Friday. So make sure you guys tune in for all of that. I'm Farzin Vasugian. Thank you all for joining me tonight. A big thank you for all of the live streams, the views, the social media engagement this season, especially this weekend. They have all been at an all-time high. Thanks to all of you guys. So please keep sharing all the content. That really helps with the algorithm, helps get the word out there about the podcast and everything else with the content. That's how we really spread the name out there. So thank you guys. I appreciate all of you. If I didn't get to your comment tonight, I do apologize. That's what the Red Friday live chat's all about. I respond to every question, every comment that night. So if you have a question that maybe I didn't get to tonight, save it for the Red Friday live chat, because that's when you can be certain that it'll be read on there. All right, guys, I'm out. Enjoy the rest of your Monday night. I will talk to you all Wednesday night. Peace out. Take care.